A common misconception about creating and creativity is that there is no structure. Whatever you're building, there has to be some kind of order in it in order for you to actually build it well. Scripture says, where there's no vision, the people perish. If you don't have vision for what you're building for your life, intentional vision, it's not going to go anywhere.
It's kind of like you brought in the desired emotion or
Mhm.
the desired result, but you started with that.
Right.
Like you start with it.
You know where you want to lead your audience to.
Yeah,
So,
whether it's an emotion of hope.
Yeah.
Or how would you say structure looks like for you as you enter the creative process of editing a video for a client?
So now let's look at the order of God and in the way He created the world and the universe and all of that. He went 6 days in creating the universe. There was order, there was structure, and the first thing that He did was let there be light, and there was light. So in order for Him to actually do the rest of the things, He had to do one thing first,
Mm.
and then that thing led to the next thing, to the next thing, to the next thing, and on the last day, He created man before He rested, and He said that was very good, and then He rested. So there was some kind of structure in that order, and being that we have said that we create from a place of God, from God in His attribute as a creative, the first thing we see God as is as a creative. So therefore, we are creatives as well. Then, if He did something in structure and did it within order, and I think we are supposed to as well. Like when you're building something and when you're creating something, there needs to be some kind of order. So I'll ask this question to you: where in your life have you seen some kind of structure in your creativity?
Where I've seen structure in my creativity is, hmm, I would say recently
Mhm,
with a video, and it kind of gave me the understanding of how important it is to give structure to the videos that we create. So, for example, working on a video, well, yeah, last week that required 8 different student testimonies,
mhm,
and there's a lot of everything at that point.
yeah,
And Pastor Eddie sat down with me and literally helped me grab each and every single one
mhm,
and to pull out important pieces, like the main, um, like just he summed up what like a 5 minute testimony, and
mhm,
we try to grab at least a minute minimum. And so he was helping me structure all those. And what that really helped me understand was how important it is just kind of go into your editing already organized.
mhm,
And so you mentioned earlier about before we had started about pre-production,
yeah,
which I love the concept of because every time I'm editing, I'm realizing, oh, I could have planned this a lot better so that
right,
my job right now, editing, is a lot easier.
right,
So I'm in a time where, you know, I have experience in my belt. I've edited many videos, uh, but one thing that I'm realizing now is um how to bring structure into that. So I love that
right,
we're having this conversation
yeah,
because the more I think about it, the more I realize others are also in the same boat.
right. And I think that's the part of it is that whatever you're building, there has to be some kind of order in it in order for you to actually build it well. So whatever God has given you to create, to build, you can use that word interchangeably. Whatever God is giving you to create and build needs some kind of structure. Now, going back to what you mentioned about pre-production, when they're creating a film, right? They go through this pre-production plan of everything that they need. From who's the director, who's the DP, who's the gaffer,
Mhm.
who is all this, who's going to be on set, everything that is needed, where we're going to film, the setting, the locations, and then to go into more the technical side of things with the cameras, the angles they're filming from, the frame, the lenses they're going to use, the cameras they're going to use, the style of lighting they're going to use, the shot list. They create all of that prior to actually filming.
Mhm.
And then when they go into filming, they're actually going in whatever scene they're actually filming at that moment. They go through step by step what needs to be filmed, and so that's where pre-production helps. Imagine going to a film without pre-production planning. Everyone's gonna be running everywhere
Yeah, that
like,
sounds like
"Oh,
a
what are we
lot.
doing? What are we doing now? What are we supposed to do? What's the next thing? What lens do you need for this? What camera are we using for this? What lighting setup do we need for this?" And so it's all over the place because there was no structure. But because there is structure, it makes the production phase actually easier.
Mm,
And then move into post production, which is editing. It makes that even easier because now all you have to do is plug and play. Now you're looking at this. Oh, this is how we filmed this. This is what it said in the pre-production. This is what happened during the production. This is what where I'm gonna put it for post-production. And I would actually say it helps with creativity because now you've structured something so well that you have room to actually be creative.
mm.
Because if you didn't plan it prior to that, all you're figuring out in that moment is I just need to get this done and get it out. But your head, you don't give your mind a space to actually think differently. You're just almost creating from chaos rather than creating from a place of structure.
Let's say you organize a video,
Mhm.
and then towards the end, it's kinda like it leaves room for just more creativity
Yep.
that will flow naturally.
Yep.
I'm sure you've experienced many times. I'm sure
Many times.
many video editors, creatives have experienced this where it kind of just like the audio just matches perfect with this
Mhm.
clip, and like it just kind of aligns itself, and
Yeah.
then it like all just works out. And I think also understanding that a lot of our creativity just comes naturally
Right.
when we just kind of when it's coming from a good place.
Mhm.
I feel ideas will just start to click. Thoughts will come into your mind, all that good stuff. So
Yeah. Let's even couple that up with vision. The scripture says where there's no vision, the people perish.
mm,
So that's the same thing is if you don't have vision for what you're building for your life, intentional vision, it's not gonna go anywhere. I remember when I started working more in the creative field, I knew that this was the thing for me. I kept telling my brothers or I don't know, my brother or my parents, one of them, I kept telling probably my brothers that the business is gonna be the thing that I'm doing at some point.
mm,
Even though I hadn't seen it, I knew that that's where I was headed, and I just kept on creating that through whatever God has given me to do and just building that to this point where we are right now, having this conversation about building something,
So would you say vision takes time to develop, or what?
Definitely. I think it takes time to develop. I think you become in your creating, you become the person you're meant to be, you know.
Mm,
For me, I didn't become this person just by not doing anything. I am naturally quiet, naturally an introvert. I'd rather just do things for myself and just relax and chill. But I feel like I have become this person where I'm communicating more in front of the cameras because of the things God has placed within me. And if I am to do the thing I need to do, I need to become the person that needs to do that thing.
mm.
You know?
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
it's as if as we take that next step, the next thing will get
The next thing will
revealed,
come. Yep.
and then the next thing will get revealed, and that's like,
It's a cycle.
yeah.
I write this in the ebook that I'm releasing soon. This is a cycle of we have an ability. The more we use that ability, the more we grow in the ability. The more we grow in the ability, the more that we're required to do more. The more we're required to do more, the more we grow in that new ability that we need. When we grow in that new ability, we do more.
Mhm,
When we do more, we're required to do more. When we're required to do more, we're growing a new ability. So then that cycle just continues and it just repeats itself. Yeah. And that comes from Matthew 25 with the servants and the talents and the master, and then coupled with Luke 12, where the more you're required, to whom much is given, much is required. So if you're given more is required of you.
mhm,
Yeah. So that's where we are today. Is we're just trying to figure out like how do we structure creativity. So I searched on Google. It gave me this definition called structured creativity actually fuels innovation by setting clear objectives, defining constraints, and implementing a structured approach. Creative thinkers can produce innovative solutions with a higher success rate. That's a lot there.
mhm. I mean, it feels like we can do more by doing less.
Exactly.
You know?
So when you structure something in the beginning, you actually have room to create something new,
Mm,
you know? And there's this principle, I'm sure it's somewhere in physics where or energy. even as a track athlete. I could relate it to that for track athletes. There's something called ATP when you're running and it builds up, your muscles, or energy. When you start like your sprints, if you go out fast enough, that energy, you can't replace that energy that you have in the beginning. So you can't save that energy for the end,
Mm,
basically. You have to either use it or you lose it. So
dang.
now structure like bringing it to us building something, if you put in the work in the beginning, hard work, the energy in the beginning, then later on in life, you don't have to use that same kind of energy.
Mm,
You actually won't have that same kind of energy
mm,
because the older we get, the more we deteriorate. So putting in the work in the beginning saves you time later in life.
mm.
Same as this, structuring the work in the beginning saves you a whole lot of headache later on as you create something.
Yeah, I love that. Would you say, like, how would you say structure looks like for you as you enter the creative process of editing a video
Mhm.
for a client?
So, I asked a lot of questions to begin with with the client. If it's something that can be structured, or if it's something where we're filming in a controlled environment, then I try to look through the lens of, okay, this is what we're trying to accomplish first, and then work backwards from there. How do we get there? What do we need? Do we need two, three people, in this specific setting? What's the next setting? What's the next setting? What's the next setting? And then actually, I even start from the story. What is the story we're trying to tell? What is the story the client is trying to convey to their audience? And then tailor that video specifically for that story. I feel like everyone has a story. The story, is worth telling, but the story for a specific video that you're trying to tell is specific to that video you're trying to tell.
Mm,
Not every story is gonna fit into one video.
mm,
So when we're structuring that story is, let's pull out the specific story that we actually want to tell and build off of that. Not just your entire story. We're not going from when you were born
mm,
to now. We're just going for the specific story that you want your audience to know for
mm.
that specific video.
Well, that's great. I've never thought about it from that perspective of you can't tell the whole
You
story
can't.
in a 3-minute video.
Yeah.
It's kind of a story within a story.
Right.
That's what
Inception.
it's.
That was one of my favorite movies, man. I like that movie. But um the point is, there are some videos where it's just more run and gun.
Mhm.
You're just filming, you're just capturing. But even in that, there's still a story to tell.
Yeah,
And the things that you capture have to point to that specific story.
yeah,
So that's why it's important to know the story you're trying to tell and the story you're trying to capture
mhm,
before you actually go capture.
yeah,
Because if not, then there might be something that happens and it's like, does it tell the story we're trying to tell?
yeah, and that's
No.
the doing more
Right.
part of it to where it's like, you could be doing less for more, but you're doing more
Yeah.
for I don't really know the other way to say it, but it's kinda like it reminds me of, when I picked up a camera for the first time, I
Mhm.
realized, "Okay, I have a camera in my hand. I can go take pictures of anything I want right now."
Yeah.
But then it kinda stops me in my tracks of like, well, it's not necessarily about capturing photos, it's
Mhm.
what you're capturing,
Right.
And so even from, like, at that time when I was thinking about that, I was, like, in a church setting, so I was like, I could take pictures of anything right now, but what is it that I'm really trying to show right now through an
Mhm.
image?
Mm.
And it kinda stops me in my tracks, kinda get right, and then I can go out and capture,
Right.
which I think, is kind of what you're touching on
Yeah.
is, what you're capturing is important. Kind of knowing a little bit of the story you're trying to tell. Kinda like the desired like, it's kinda like you brought in the desired emotion or
Mhm.
the desired result, but you started with that.
Right.
Like, you start with it.
You know where you want to lead your audience to,
Yeah,
so
whether it's an emotion of hope
yeah.
or, just anything like that, I feel is so important because it kind of, you're gonna start finding those shots.
Right.
Now gonna be open to your eyes
Mm.
rather than maybe to the person to your left, but you're more focused on that
That's
specific
specific.
emotion and
Yeah.
you're gonna see it all over the place.
Right.
So I love that.
Yeah, and I think that goes beyond, we've talked about just track and field, we've talked about video editing. That goes beyond that. I think we could see that in anything that anyone is doing
Mm,
is, what do you want your audience to know about you?
mm,
And I think that's why video is so important in this day and age. it is king when it comes to creating content, is the videos and the stories that we're telling through video actually matters to what you're building and what you're doing. So if you're creating content around what you're doing, you're actually taking your audience and your people on a journey with you from where you started to where you're going. You already kind of you never have the end in mind because this is a journey. It's not a destination, but you kind of like know where you're heading,
Mm,
and so you're going towards that way. I was watching a video recently, and I think it was Francis Chan, and it said, "What was Jesus doing when he was 25 years old?" We don't know.
mhm,
The scriptures don't tell us. It was probably, working with his hands, as a carpenter with his dad. What was he doing when he was 28 years old? We don't know. But once it turns 30, that's when we see Jesus in this heightened stage of like, people are like, who is this guy?
mhm,
Where did he come from? Why is he doing this? But he took the time to really build something within himself
mm,
to be able to offer to people
mm,
and the things that is doing. Not that you have to wait until you're a certain age,
mhm.
but just know that you don't know it all. I don't
Yeah,
know it all. There's still a lot that we have to learn and to build and to understand as
mhm,
we go along the journey.
yeah.
But what you do know, you can start helping people with.
Yeah, the private life like, when our private life goes public,
Yeah.
and it's crazy when you mentioned that because I feel like that's how we still see it in today's world
Mhm.
of maybe the people that we listen to, of just, for example, Myron Golden.
Yeah.
It's like, "Oh, where this guy come from?"
Right.
And he's like, "Oh, I've been here.
Yeah, it's been here.
I've been here," you
Now
know?
we're just seeing it because of video.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's a really cool statement, and we see that so many
Right.
times with so many people
Right.
of they've always been in the process of building,
Mhm.
and then it's that specific day or that specific season where in a sense goes public,
Yeah.
and then now eyes are on, ears are listening, and but I love that it's the private work
Right.
that never stops.
Yeah. It's like, what are you doing when no one is watching?
Mhm.
People have always said that, but they always say it from a certain place. Like, what
Mhm.
are you doing when no one is watching?
Yeah, yeah,
But at the same time, it's like, what are you doing when no one is watching? Like,
yeah.
are you actually building yourself up to become the person that you want to
Mhm. Are
be?
you yeah, are you still learning? Are
Are
you
you
you're
still
still
learning?
a student?
Yeah. Of course, there's gonna be mistakes along the way. There's no one that doesn't make any mistakes. We all
Mhm.
make mistakes. I've made mistakes. You've made mistakes. And people that we've had on the podcast, they've had their own line of mistakes. But because of those mistakes and you learn from those mistakes, you become the person on the journey,
Mm, mhm,
So whoever's listening, if this is for you, go structure the thing that you want to build. Don't just unintentionally make it happen. You have to be intentional with finding what God has put within you, develop what God has put within you, and then go use that. It's the same thing. Believe in who God has created you to be, create using those things that He has given you, and go influence other people to go do the same. And that's what we're talking about here is go do the thing, become the person, and then build the thing.
mm,
But in order to do that, structure it in the beginning. Late nights in the beginning. I know people don't preach that, but that's what every successful person has done. They've grinded in some way in the beginning in order to have the success that they have today. But people don't talk about it. They're just like, oh, get your sleep. But you listen to people that have already made money. They're sleeping, yes, and they're making money in their sleep. But I remember late nights of waking, staying up to. I still do that today,
mhm,
3, 4 in the morning, because I'm building something, and I know that at the end of all of this, there's gonna be time to sleep.
mhm,
But obviously, I'm not neglecting my health.
mhm,
If my body says I need to rest, I'm gonna rest.
mhm.
And I listen to that.
Yeah.
So it's almost like finding that it's not a balance, but prioritizing what needs to be prioritized in
Mhm.
the moment.
Yeah, there's a lot more in us than we think. It's kinda
Yeah.
like, I know there's a scientific fact out there somewhere, I had heard it before, but it's the idea of, like, even, like, from a fitness perspective, like, let's say you think you're done,
Hmm.
it's like, no, I think it's like, in other words, you'll surprise yourself with how much more you got in the tank
Yeah.
if you just, in a sense, get another rep,
Right.
and then it's kinda like your body will just follow your mind.
Yep.
So, like, we think we're crashing,
Hmm.
and I feel like we have it. I feel we can operate in times where it feels like we just have like a limited capacity,
Hmm.
and I'm sure you've experienced many times where you've had very minimal sleep, but still the next day, on, 3 hours of sleep, you're just still super
So
energetic, you're
productive.
still
Yep.
awake, you're still, engaging with people,
Yep.
and I think it's just it's inside of you,
Mhm.
to keep going. And that's kind of what I'm witnessing as well as a lot of my favorite edits so far have come from late nights. And I think it's also of understanding you and yourself, and when you kind of like when you're operating in that headspace to
Mhm.
just create.
Yeah.
For some people, I was speaking to someone just the other day, and they were talking about how them for that time is instead of staying up late, they
Mhm.
wake up at 3:30 a.m.
Exactly.
and then they start their day like that.
Yep.
And then by the time it's 8 a.m., whatever, people are barely getting up,
Or
you're kind of done with that thing.
yeah.
And me, I'm like, oh, okay, I'm willing to try that. But for
Mhm.
lately, it's mine just been, I can notice I just get a burst of energy kind of, late at night, and
Mhm.
so I'll kind of run with that.
Yeah.
But then some nights I'll have a burst of energy, and I'll go, go, go. But then I'm like, okay, this is it. I'll
Right.
mark this as a checkpoint. I'll come back to this the next day.
Yeah.
Some videos, there's deadlines with some videos, you can't do that all the time.
Mhm.
But I think it's important just to kind of understand, like discover within yourself of how that looks for you,
Yeah.
because it's different for everyone. It's
Right.
gonna it's gonna kind of be different. But I think the idea that you're touching on with we can do more
Mhm.
than we think, like because I know that's a big thing in the language today, of going back to like the seven, the eight, and I'm not disagreeing with that, but it's more of like, I don't know, like it's kind of, if you have it in you,
Mhm.
you may not ever have this in you again.
Yeah. True.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like
This
so.
is this is probably the most energy you're gonna have because the older we get, the more the energy leaves. Like I feel like
If you don't take care
physically,
of yourself,
even
for
though
sure.
yeah,
Yeah.
physically, but mentally you get wiser if you put in the work that
Yeah.
needs to be put in.
I desire to be 65 and more energetic than I've ever been.
Like the guy Eddie Abu.
Uh, who is it? Who is it?
Eddie Abu on Instagram, this dude is like it became
Oh,
yeah.
is he
Yeah.
like, okay,
Yeah,
he's
is
jacked.
about 65 years old and is still going. But I mean, I think you still slow down regardless of if you're strong, if you're big, you still slow down
Yeah,
in some kind of way.
you just do it differently.
It's just that's just the way life is.
Mhm,
But I think there is a thing to that of doing the hard work first. That way later on it's easier for you. Even going to the gym, when you first go to the gym, it's hard at first.
mhm,
You actually get weaker first. You come home, you're sore. The second day, you're even more sore than you were
mhm,
the first day.
mhm,
And then eventually it gets better
mhm.
and it progresses and it becomes easier.
Yeah.
And so, yeah. And I think the whole idea of this conversation is just structure whatever it is that you're wanting to build intentionally. Obviously, things are going to change as you go on. Things have changed for me as I went on. But because I was intentional with the structure of it, it was easier to make that pivot. So yeah, that's what this conversation is about. If you're listening still and you haven't subscribed to the channel, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. If you're listening on Apple Podcast or Spotify or Google, go ahead and leave us a review. That's how the channels pushes it more out there for other people to listen. So leave a review if you've gotten some kind of value from this conversation. Anything else you want to add?
I think we're good.
All right, that's it for today. Go ahead and go create that thing that you've been created to create. See you guys on the next one. Peace.